This is gonna be tough, at least for me, but I'm still gonna try. Like, at least when I did KOF 15 roster predictions, to me that was a little bit easier. Given the fact that we pretty much knew that we were gonna get 3 characters to a team, we could at least gauge how large the roster would possibly be. And before I even get to a single character prediction right now, that is the big thing that's really troubling me right now, and I'm gonna start with it right off the bat. Just how big is Fatal Fury City of the Wolves' roster going to be? Because if you look throughout the many years of Fatal Fury, this game doesn't really have what you would call a generally large roster. And I mean, it makes perfect sense as to why KOF has relatively much larger rosters than Fatal Fury. KOF is a team game, so team games usually tend to have more characters on their roster as opposed to just 1v1 games, in most cases. Even if we were just to look at the most recently released Fatal Fury game, that being Garo Mark of the Wolves, this is not exactly a huge roster. It's a decent sized roster, but not like a lot of characters really. But of course, what it may have lacked when it comes to numbers in terms of the roster, pretty much all the Garo characters are pretty good in and of themselves, as far as personality, playstyles, and so on. Even as I'm saying all this, I can't really find like a logical methodology to guesstimate how large this roster might be. I personally would hope that there's more characters than Garo Mark of the Wolves, but at the same time, this is a prediction series and I don't want to put too much of my personal feelings into this. I want to actually try to predict this. Before I start talking in circles, and I'm just not going to get off this point, and seeing that I really don't have any equation or any way to like really approach this, I'm just going to take a wild guess. For Fatal Fury City of the Wolves' starting roster, I'm going to put it somewhere in the 18 to 25 range. Just to specify, what I'm going to do is, when it comes to me putting together this roster prediction, I'm not going to have any less or more than this amount of characters on there unless something else happens, like if SNK just comes out someday and says, hey, it's going to be this amount of characters on the roster. Again, I don't really have a lot of evidence to back this up. The only thing I will say is this. Seeing that this is the first Fatal Fury in quite some time, I have had this feeling that this roster is actually going to be a mishmash of more classic old school Fatal Fury characters, Terry, Andy, and Joe, and more new age, new school Fatal Fury characters. I know that's kind of weird seeing that at this point in time, maybe all Fatal Fury characters, including the likes of your Rock Howards, your B Jennies, and your Marcos, maybe you would probably consider them old school, but we're talking about relative to just the series itself. But yeah, I feel like this roster is going to be a mixture of these characters, and quite frankly, if they're going to do that, a Garo-sized roster is not going to do it. You're going to be somewhere in that range that I mentioned, the 18 to 25 range. If you wanted me to narrow down my numbers from that even further, I'm looking at 20 characters even. Not a super high number, but not a super low one either, and I think there will be at least enough variety with that amount of characters being put in. I cannot believe I'm just... Can't believe I'm just spending most of this time talking about how big the roster is going to be. But at the same time, that is the most difficult part to me, at least. All right, moving on to the good stuff. The good stuff, the meat, the potatoes, the steak, all that stuff. The characters. So at this point in time, the characters that have been fully confirmed, aka those that we've seen trailers for and gameplay for, we got Rock, we got Terry, we got Hotaru, we have TEASED, we have Preacher, we have Marco, and as of the Summer Game Fest announcement, we have B Jenny, and we have Vox Reaper. 8 characters outright confirmed for this roster. Moving right along, going back to some previous trailers, there have been those that have basically, at least in my eyes, have been teased or hinted. Andy, Joe, Kane, and Billy have all been shown in those 2 pieces of promotional artwork for this game that we've seen in earlier trailers. I want to expand on this, but I'll get back to it momentarily. Moving right along, we've also had a whole bunch of characters being teased and hinted via the Evo trailer that we got the previous year. We heard the voices of Mai, Kevin, Gato, and Hokutomaru far as characters that have not been seen in game yet. Getting back to what I wanted to say about the characters we saw in the artwork, I've seen some people speculate that the characters in the background are not going to be on the roster. I've seen some people reason that it was the very prominent character in the foreground, Terry, and Rock. Those were the ones that were basically being pushed. Now, again, I still stand by what I said earlier. This is going to be a mishmash of the old school and the new school. I know some people might roll their eyes at this, but I can see Andy and Joe being on the roster for this game. And right out of nowhere, like literally right here on the spot, I just thought of something pretty interesting that I never thought about before. When you take the original Fatal Fury 3, Terry, Andy, and Joe, all three of these guys pretty much have disciples that are in or pretty much have a good chance of being in this game. With Terry, it's obviously Rock. Not to mention this is Rock's story, so of course, it's pretty telltale. With Joe, it has been confirmed that Preacher is his disciple. When it comes to Andy, and now that I think about it, maybe he kind of shares this with Mai as well, there's Hokutomaru, who I'm pretty sure was that one voice there. I know some people have been debating over whether that was Andy or Hokutomaru, but listen again. And now this. Yeah, it's basically Hokutomaru, but he's aged up some, which honestly, I cannot wait to see how he looks. Like, the original character of Hokutomaru, I wouldn't say there was really a cool factor to him. Like, for me at least, he was cool when it came to like his animations and his moveset. And it's not like I want them to strip away any comedy or levity and just have City of the Wolves be this very serious, straight-laced game, but I really hope that the older, more grown Hokutomaru is a lot more badass. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really can't wait to see what they did with this game. But that's just something I thought about. All three or four, if you will, of the Fatal Fury like originals, the veterans, they have disciples that are pretty much active in this story. And I'm pretty sure they're gonna all be on this roster. I know some people might look at that as like a waste where it's like, just push the disciple, why you gotta have the veterans around? Well, of these three disciple characters, I could totally see Rock like being able to stand on his own because he does have more of his own story. But the link that has been established with Terry is just so strong. I don't particularly think that you could really break that. Like, I don't know, I feel like some people would just not like the fact if Terry was just relegated to a cameo, honestly. Even with how similar him and Rock are, it's like, it's almost like a tag team. You can't really see yourself having one without the other. And of course, Joe and Andy and Mai are definitely gonna help further get Hokutomaru and Preacher over. Even though I'm not completely sold on Preacher right now, I can appreciate how you see little bits and pieces of Joe in her fighting style, but of course, she has her own stuff. And as long as the master and the student aren't too similar, I really don't have that much of a problem with it. And going over to the other bit of artwork there, Kane, especially with what we've learned about Vox Reaper, he's got to be in there. Again, he is a very important and pivotal part of the story, so I can see him being there. Billy, unless I am missing something, is kind of funny in this case because last time I checked, when it came to Garo Mark of the Wolves, we really didn't know what Billy was up to. But you know what? As I say that might be a good opportunity to actually to figure out what he's been up to. Like, I'm sure there's going to be some type of conflict involving Terry somewhere. So all in all, what I'm trying to say is I don't think there are any red herrings when it comes to the background characters in these two pieces of promotional artwork. I think they're all going to be on the roster. Moving right along to what I call the soundbite trailer. Again, I've seen some people talking about, I don't think just hearing their voices is enough to confirm them. Well, at this point right now, this trailer has been hella reliable. I haven't seen any red herrings anywhere. In fact, I'm fairly certain I forgot this earlier, so I'm just gonna correct myself just in case, but if this is a repeat, I know I can edit it out. I'm pretty sure we heard Billy's voice in that trailer as well. So not only is he in the promotional artwork, but he's also pretty much been teased in that particular trailer. I honestly don't know what type of copium people are huffing because some people are still sweating that they think we are not going to get Mai in this. Like, have y'all forgotten what y'all have done to SNK when it comes to this freaking character? You know what, I'm tired of repeating what it was, so I'm just gonna throw this up right here.
Leave me alone!
But yeah, again, Mai, Kevin, Gato, Hokutomaru, I can see all of them being in this game as well. I am personally not sensing anything like a red herring from the artwork or this trailer right here. Those of you that are skeptical, I mean, hey, that's your opinion, but whatever, I'm just moving on. So with that being said, who are my extra picks? Who hasn't been teased or even shown in gameplay yet that I think is going to be in this game? Well, one way to tackle this, at least for me, is let's go back to the Garo Mark of the Wolves roster. Who are some favorites, some staples in here that it would seem like SNK would have to bring back? One that I'm pretty sure we're not going to see far as being a playable character is Grant. Because of course, Vox Reaper. I'm not saying Grant is gone or anything, but Vox Reaper is there. Just push this guy right here. We can probably still see Grant somewhere in the story, but push this guy. Like, you're gonna bring out some new blood, push him. There are 2 characters, maybe 3 possibly, that have not really gotten a mention far as this game has been concerned in terms of promotion, and that's Kim and his 2 sons. Okay. I know I said what I said about the original 3, Fatal Fury, possibly 4 if you count Mai, being on the roster and also having their disciples on the roster. In the case of Kim and his sons, I think we probably need to have one or the other. And seeing that I know people have missed Kim's sons since it's been a while since they've been playable, I would put the 2 of them being in this game over Kim. I know a lot of SNK fans are upset that Kim's perfect attendance record pretty much got shattered in 15, far as like him being on the main roster. And of course he came later, but I know a lot of people were not really happy with waiting that long for somebody who has been a long-time staple, long-time favorite. It's freaking Kim. How dare you? But even with that, when it comes to this game, and one thing that I've said several times in a couple of videos where I've talked about City of the Wolves, the one great thing about this being a new Fatal Fury instead of another KOF is the fact that we can finally get some characters that have had very little to no playable screen time in KOF. Gonna get to that later. But yeah, I don't think that many people are gonna be upset at getting the brothers over Kim. They might not be as well liked as their father, but they are well liked. So Kim Dong-hwan, Kim Jae-hoon, yeah, I think they're gonna be on the main roster. Continuing on the course of talking about characters that debuted in Garo Mark of the Wolves, Freeman. Now, I'll admit, this is kind of biased on my part right here, but still, he has got to be in there. Aside from being somebody that's also been requested quite a bit, he is yet another character with a pretty interesting unresolved story. Like, I would really love to see what happened to him after he had got sniped. I don't think they should drop this storyline. Not to mention, Kevin was teased, so this right here could easily be the second chapter in these 2 butting heads, because of course, if you recall, Freeman killed a member of the SWAT forces from 2nd Southtown, and that victim was Kevin's partner. The fact that they didn't find a body after they sniped him, Freeman is out there lurking somewhere, and I'm pretty sure Kevin is not gonna be willing to give that up. Like, they probably want this guy dead or in jail. Probably dead, but just saying. Let's step back a little bit and talk about more old school Fatal Fury characters. First of all, I do think that we are going to see Yamazaki on the main roster of City of the Wolves. Marco was just confirmed, and while there aren't really any explicit mentions of this particular angle mentioned in his bio, I recall him wanting to seek out Yamazaki after he had beat up a whole bunch of people in a Kyokugen Ryu dojo. Again, it's a pretty easy story to follow through with, and I would love to see it play out in this game. Plus, obviously Yamazaki super popular and all that. The one thing that I'm hoping doesn't happen, and I have the itching suspicion that it will, please SNK. You know how popular this guy is. This is Fatal Fury that we're talking about. This is his home game, even though, yeah, he was in King of Fighters, but he was a Fatal Fury character first, okay? Please, do not sell him as DLC again. Please, please don't do it. Even as I'm begging, I have the very just slight suspicion it'll still happen, but I'm hoping they just don't, okay? I understand he's guaranteed money, but come on now, come on. Now this next one might be some wishful thinking on my part. Again, I'm not gonna have this whole thing inspired by just who I want. However, at the same time, I'm not gonna hide from the fact that this is quite literally some wishful thinking from me, but I have a little something extra to back it up. Rick Stroud. SNK has got to know how many people want this guy back. And don't get me wrong, I like Vanessa. I really like Vanessa. Vanessa's cool, but Vanessa is a star over in the KOF universe more so. We're in Fatal Fury here, and if you want a badass boxer, this is the guy. I know I said that in my video about characters I want, but the opportunity is right there. It's too perfect. Speaking of KOF, the one thing that jumps in my mind, and it's not like the most solid evidence, and this might apply to somebody else, but I do recall going back to KOF 15, recall whenever a new character would be revealed in a trailer, and then not long after that, SNK would release an image of said character, accompanied by an explanation, mostly talking about things such as design choices, but I want to specifically talk about Elizabeth's. If I'm not mistaken, I recall SNK acknowledging how much people were really wanting her to come back in KOF 15. I'm pretty sure it was the first sentence of that particular image as well. Again, you can call this a stretch. I mean, you probably wouldn't be wrong, but honestly, I feel like when it comes to Fatal Fury and people pining for the long-awaited return of a very cool character that was underutilized in the series, I think Rick is that guy. Now, how much of a role he'll play in the story, I don't really know. I'm not exactly sure if SNK is going to be picking the roster based on storyline significance or anything else specific, but Rick is that guy. One of a handful where it's like, we've been wanting this guy back for a minute. And again, he was basically kept out of KOF because of Vanessa. And again, love me some Vanessa, but this is Fatal Fury. They want a badass boxer, this is the guy right here. And that right there brings up my roster, my theoretical roster, if you will, up to 21 characters. So far as staying within the range, we're doing a pretty good job. I do have one more prediction though, and I'm not gonna make this one too complex, but I do think we are going to see one more fresh newcomer. We got 2 thus far. I think there's room for one more. Now, who it is, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I had to go back and look at like the Scrap Garo character image that you all might have seen before, and I tried to look to see if anywhere in there, perhaps, did they take a little something from somebody else and give it to Vox, but nah, I couldn't really find anything, and all these different elements, whether it be what we saw in the trailer with his fighting style, and even some stuff that was pointed out by eagle-eyed fans, it's all basically links to Grant. I personally couldn't see any of the Scrap characters being reworked or tweaked and pretty much being made into Vox. But anyways, yeah, I think we have room and we're gonna get one more new character. I couldn't tell you who it is. I could tell you who I hope it is, and that it's old Dolvik right here. Just saying. I really hope SNK does not drop this design, but again, my confidence is not really that high. As far as I'm concerned, me personally with new characters and this game, SNK is 1 for 2 right now. I'm not sold on Preacher yet, but I am sold on Vox. I know new characters and the amount of them being put into a roster of a long-standing franchise is kind of polarizing and contentious with certain people, but one more new character wouldn't hurt, and I think we're gonna see him. And with that, my theoretical roster is up to 22, which far as the range that I want to stay in, good job. For those of you that are new to the channel and weren't around when I did my KOF 15 roster predictions, just know that this is just the first edition of this series. As we go on and as we keep getting reveals, I am going to update the board here, make some changes. There might be a character reveal that I don't have on my roster at all, and I might change my mind about something at a later time or whatnot. So just letting you know, I don't have this set in stone completely. There will be updates as we go along, and also, some of y'all were a tremendous help when it came to the KOF 15 roster predictions. You all did help alert me to certain things that I overlooked, that I forgot, and even made some pretty interesting suggestions that I could actually see happening over my original thoughts. So feel free, of course, to comment anything along the lines of that. But that's basically all I've got for this edition of my predictions. Of course, let me know what you think below. And until next time, I am the Chris Lotus. Hey everybody, it's Chris Lotus from the future. So in the middle of me editing this video, 2 very interesting pieces of information were shared with me. Special thanks, of course, to one of my good friends and a big supporter of the channel, Onyx Blade. So the first post in question came courtesy of a tweet by Yasuki Oda, which I'll put on the screen right here. And it's an image of Blue Mary in what some have likened to Rick Stroud stage. From what I could tell, the caption accompanying the picture is talking about a dark history from over 25 years ago that was dug up during the process of City of the Wolves. and what I'm assuming is talking about Art of Fighting, and not to mention there was talk about another Art of Fighting being in production as well. If I am wrong on that, do not hesitate to correct me, because I am still in the beginner phases of learning Japanese. But yeah, I'm pretty sure some people were wondering where was Blue Mary in my prediction, and honestly, I'm just gonna be straight up with you all. I actually thought that this game was gonna pull a KOF 14 and have Blue Mary as DLC. People would buy it because it's Blue Mary, and in my mind personally, seeing that they've mostly revealed a lot of fresh new or like newer characters like the ones that debuted in Garo Mark of the Wolves, I figured that the DLC is going to be where they try to milk the nostalgia, whether it's Yamazaki, whether it's Mary in this case. But this post that was brought to my attention does make me believe that we may very well see a Blue Mary reveal at EVO. And seeing that some people have been critical of the fact that there haven't been that many old school Fatal Fury characters revealed yet, this might be a good step in the right direction, so I'll go ahead and I'll add Blue Mary to my prediction. The second thing that was brought to my attention also came courtesy of a tweet, but this all traces back to another interview that SNK did. In this interview with Friday Digital, SNK were once again asked about the characters in City of the Wolves. SNK answers by mentioning there will be characters from Mark of the Wolves, which we've already seen, some fresh new characters, whom we've also seen, and it's the third one that is definitely interesting. Some surprise characters that will make you go, oh. This sounds very similar to what Capcom had told us before they had revealed Terry and Mai for Street Fighter 6 Season 2. Is SNK doing the same thing in regards to City of the Wolves right here? I can't really think of anything else that could be hinting at. Like, the only other thing I could see that possibly pointing at is maybe it's a relatively obscure Fatal Fury character that we haven't seen in a minute. But at the same time, would that make you go, oh? Probably. I almost made a YouTube short on this particular bit of information because this came out after I had dropped my other video where I asked which of these two games is seemingly getting a Capcom character. Because unlike the previous bit of information that we got, I don't know exactly what to do with this bit of information as far as like a prediction is concerned. I mean, I think it does increase the chances that a guest character will be in City of the Wolves, but at the same time, I'll acquiesce to the fact that somebody like Rick Stroud could be an oh character. Like, oh, y'all really brought him back. You know what I'm saying? So, right now I don't really have anything for that bit of information. I did want to bring it up. I did find it interesting, but that's all I really have to say about that. And until next time, I am the Chris Lotus, signing off. You all take care of yourselves, be safe out there, be cool to each other, and stay cool by staying hydrated in the heat. See ya.